In this video I will talk about how I master my live setup when I'm using my modular system and my looper. I will also make a video about how I master my model cycles. This video will come in near future. For today I used an example. I also made a video about how I finish tracks, so that's the same recording. And yeah, we have a short listen. In this example, I recorded the kick and all the other stuff separate. I now switch to the video program DaVinci because I used this recording for a jam I uploaded on YouTube. And yeah, but you can do everything in Ableton, of course. Here I have the kick separate. It's this here. And this is the other stuff. The first thing I did on the kick was using a transient shaper, and I did a little boost from 500 to 4K. For me that's a good way to shape the kick and make it a little bit more punchy. Then I used Ozone 10, and I can recommend Ozone because I use it for my mastering all the time, and it makes a lot of fun because you have the tools you need and beyond. I can recommend it. So the first thing I did in Ozone was using the equalizer, and normally I would make a cut here because when I record my Moog, my DFM kick, there are a lot of low mids and I want to filter it out. But in this example, cutting it out would make it a little bit, like too thin. And that's why I boosted it. For me it makes things more interesting. But of course, from track to track, that's individual. Yeah, maybe the next track is like I need a cut here. So it depends on your music choice or your musical choice, and also what the other instruments are playing. The next plugin is like a transient shaper, but another algorithm. And here I use it for the low ends and also, for this area here. I will show it to you. Yeah, this helps to make it a little bit more characteristic and give it a little bit more punch that I want. Of course, you can also use the low end focus. The low end focus plugin helps you to get more of a clear sound in the low end. But in this example, it wasn't needed. Then the maximizer I use mainly not for limiting, but I use it for saturation. And of course, the saturation here is like a compression, but not a compression, of course. And yeah, also gives it a little bit more character. Then we come to the other part. Here I used, of course, Ozone, and as you can see, here are some other plugins in comparison to the kick. So the first part here is using a dynamic EQ. Because my quadranted swarm in my setup, I use here for the synth voice, and the quadranted swarm has very harsh sounds. So every time I use it, I also use the dynamic EQ to reduce this harsh sound. Then an equalizer, so a low cut and a little bit of high cut, if you want to say it that way. Then the imager, often I use this setting here. Then yeah, the first thing is to mono the bass, then also made it more like in the middle for the low mids. And yeah, you can see it here, of course. And the important thing is that I give a little bit more stereo imaging to the highs. Yeah, the modular system, when you record it like the way I did, then sometimes, yeah, it's not the same stereo image in comparison to if you do everything in the DAW. And yeah, that's the imager, a nice way to make it more stereo. Then the dynamics. Here you can tame the frequencies, of course, and compress it, but also if you want to have gain changes here, it's a perfect tool for it. Then the maximizer, and here I use the maximizer also for the saturation. To give it more character. Then after that I combined these two individual tracks and put just a maximizer on it. Nothing more. And this was the sound for my YouTube video. We now come to Ableton because I used this audio file to make a release of it. And for the release, the audio file I used for the jam was too dry for me. And what I did here is I put a reverb on everything. Of course, I made a low cut, a very high low cut, but for the area 1.5K to 10K, I used an equalizer, or yeah, to cut out the reverb in the lows and the highs. It makes more stereo. We can hear the comparison if we use the utility. So the settings of the utility are, if I make it like this, we only hear everything except the sound in the middle. Yeah. So what we hear now is everything except the middle sound. And now we will hear the comparison to when I activate the reverb. And what you hear is that the heads are coming in when I use the reverb, because the heads were mono, or yeah, almost mono when I recorded it. So that's a very nice trick. You can use the reverb also on everything. And yeah, it's not that much, so 13%, a subtle change. Then I use the equalizing and cut off the lows and the highs, like here on the sides. Very simple. And the last plugin, of course, is Ozone. And everything I did was make it louder. Let me first turn off the utility. That's the loudness I want. And for the overall sound, I only have a very small saturation. So yeah, 10% and in the low settings here. In the light settings, yeah. As you can see, I used a lot of saturation afterwards, but it sounds good and I recommend to try it yourself. You can also use the saturation knob, it's for free, or another saturation tool. Yeah, and that's basically it. When I would record it or when I would master it myself, I would do it like this. And yeah, if you have questions, then write me a comment and see you in the next video. Bye.